Hi everybody, welcome back. This screencast is going to be the first in 3 screencasts that talk about the syllabus for the course. The syllabus for the course can be found at LiveBinder. It's also at Blackboard, but at LiveBinder here on this tab. So let's open it up and take a look at the very beginning of it. As you know, a syllabus has to contain lots and lots and lots of information, and so some of this is going to be information that we'll review, and some of it is just information that's down here on paper, just so that you've got it with you. Probably a few things to point out here. The office number for me is right here, 294-3673, area code 90936. My office phone is forwarded to my home phone when I'm not in the office, so if you call, I should be able to pick it up remotely. But the best way really to get in touch with me anytime is to use the emails. Dr. L at shsu.edu or LIS_TSL at shsu.edu. Generally, my office hours are going to be on Tuesdays. I get into the office by 8. I'm usually there till 4 or 5. That's probably the best time if you want to talk to me on the phone. That's probably the best time that you know I'm going to be in one place. I'm not going to read the course description. I'm not going to go through the idea objectives with you. But instead, I want to spend this first screencast talking about the reading for the course. The textbook, as I mentioned in the first screencast on Course Overview, is online and free, and it's authored by Dr. Perry and me. There is the link to the Google Doc that will get you there, and the table of contents has hyperlinks that will take you to readings, take you to screencasts, to give you information about all the materials we're going to use for the course. When you look at the class, you'll see that I want you to read the textbook at the beginning of the course. So you'll be reading and reflecting on the textbook chapters earlier before you start talking about the required reading for the course. But here is the required reading for the course. We're all going to read some books in common. I feel it's really a good idea that we know some books together as a group. They represent a wide range of books. You can see that they have copyright dates from the 80s, the 90s, all the way up to 2016. That's the most recent book that's on the list. So we'll all read Sherman Alexie's National Book Award winner, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. We're reading this for a couple of reasons. First of all, books by and about Native American or First People are truly rare, especially in the field of children's and young adult literature. Second, this is a National Book Award winner. That you'll be reading about the National Book Award, but it is a cash prize that honors excellence in literature for young adults, and this certainly is one. You're going to be reading Laurie Haltz Anderson's Speak. It is a Prince Honor book, and you'll be reading about the Prince Award when you get to the chapter on awards in your textbook. It is an important story. It deals with acquaintance rape and with the aftermath of that, how awful it is, yes, but also how one girl has to try to deal with what has happened to her by herself and soon realizes she has to get help. She has to speak up. You're going to be reading Nancy Gardner's Annie on My Mind. It's the oldest book on the required list. It's the book that went all the way to the Supreme Court in Kansas because parents wanted it removed from the school. The book prevailed. The students prevailed because they defended this book. This is one of the first books that deals with LGBTQ issues, and you can see that was being done 35 years ago. So it's a book that really was well ahead of its time. Donna Gephardt's Lillian Duncan is a more recent book that deals with LGBTQ issues. It deals with transgender. It deals with lots of other kinds of problems that kids face in their lives as well. You're going to be reading Roby Harris's It's Perfectly Normal. That's sometimes referred to by students as the sex book because it is. It's about bodies. It's about sex. It's about all the things that have to do with sex, sexual reproduction, and how our bodies change and develop as we grow older. A new book this semester is Chip Kids Go, A Kid's Guide to Graphic Design. It's a book that talks about how we respond to color and shape and placement on a page. And it may seem to deal more with picture books, but it really deals an awful lot with graphic novels. And certainly you're going to read some graphic novels for the course this semester. It's nonfiction. It is a fairly heavy book, but the reading goes very quickly. I think you'll really enjoy it. Walter Dean Meyer's Monster is the first ever winner of the Printz Award for Distinguished Contribution to Young Adult Literature, kind of the Newbery equivalent in young adult literature. It is written as part screenplay, part kind of memoir, and it's totally wonderful, and certainly is exemplary of the work that Myers contributed during his lifetime to young adult literature. You're going to read science fiction fantasy, the first in a trilogy by Patrick Ness called The Knife of Never Letting Go. It is an incredible trilogy. It deals with a futuristic society mostly comprised of, well, all comprised of men, at least initially. And there are all kinds of things that are wrong in this, what's supposed to be a utopian society. We're going to read Isabel Quintero's Gabby, A Girl in Pieces. It's a winner of the Pura Belpré Award given for books that feature Hispanic characters. And finally, Marjane Sartrapi's Persepolis. You can read either Persepolis or the sequels to Persepolis, but it kind of makes more sense that you read the first book first if you haven't already. It is a graphic novel. Plus, you're going to select one book from each of the following authors for young adult readers. And if you're not sure if the book's for young adult readers or not, check with me. Because Chris Crutcher, for example, has written a couple of adult novels. And Rebecca Stead has some books that are more for middle grade, as does Raina Telgemeier. So please do check with me if you're not sure if it's a young adult audience. So you're going to read one book by Chris Crutcher, one book by A.S. King, that stands for Amy King, but she writes under her initials, one book by Andrew Smith, one by Kwame Alexander, one by Rebecca Stead, one by John Green, one by Raina Telgemeier, and one by Francesca Leah Block. These are some of the leading authors in young adult literature. Some, like Crutcher, have been writing for children and young adults since the 1980s, and some, like Kwame Alexander, are new voices. So there's a reason why these particular authors were picked. Plus, you're going to read 6 other books of your choice from the following lists. You can't read 6 books from one list. You have to use at least 4 of these lists in picking your 6 books. So you're going to read, for example, you can choose from Best Fiction for Young Adults Top 10 list, Quick Picks Top 10 list, Printz and/or Printz Honor Books, Excellence in Nonfiction for Young Adults, Great Graphic Novels for Teens Top 10 list, Outstanding Books for the College Bound, and Bill Morris Award winners, not finalists. There'll be more information about this should you need it, but these are the lists that from which you're to select. Please be sure to use the lists from the last 2 to 3 years. Don't go back and back and back in time. It's better that you read more recent books at this point. And finally, you're going to read one book from the New York Times best-selling book list. These are usually listed as chapter books for 10 and up from the June to September 17th copies of the bestseller list. Those are usually published on Sundays. You can access them by simply going to New York Times bestseller. You can Google that and it'll pull up the list. So one book that's a recent bestseller. You can listen to any of these books in audiobook. You can also read them in e-format. That's certainly fine. The total number of books to be read is 25. That's how many books you're going to read over the semester. When you look at due dates, you'll see that they're due in groups of 8 and 8, and then the final one, of course, has to have a few more books in it. But nonetheless, that's how you're going to be doing. There is no order in which you need to read the books. Quite frankly, usually the order is the order in which you can get your hands on the books. So that's the first part of the syllabus, the first screencast on the syllabus. We'll be back with more information about the syllabus in the next screencast.